you ready?
So, hi everyone. My name is Aldana, and I'm gonna basically show the simplest recipe for Russian pierogi with meat. Why are we doing this? Is because a lot of friends of mine are asking about the recipe. Hey, can you give me the recipe on how to make pierogi? Which is not to be confused with Polish pierogi, but with the Russian peerozhkee, which is basically a baked version of the Polish pierogi. So it's gonna be pretty simple. For the dough, you will need 1 tub sour cream, which is about 1 pound, 16 ounces. You'll need a little bit of milk, which is 2 cups, and I have measured 2 cups exactly, and it's better be warm milk. I'm sorry, 1 cup. 1 cup milk, which is basically has to be warm milk, and 4 cups of flour. So right now I have 2 cups. I'm going to add another 2 cups, so 4 cups of flour, 1 tub of sour cream, 16 ounces, 2 sticks, I would say, 2 sticks of butter that you will have to cut up, and I'll show it to you later. And that's pretty much for the dough. And for the filling, we have 2, can you show here, Isabella? We have 2 pounds of beef, 1 big large onion, a little bit of salt to taste, oil to cook that meat in, and salt and pepper to taste. That's it. That's all you need for a pierogi. So let me start mixing up the ingredients. Cut your video. No, don't. So let's warm up the milk. Did you start?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're doing right now, Nelly, get off the table, please. So what we're doing right now, we're finishing up cutting our butter. We have the sour cream in there. We have a really nice and kind of lukewarm milk, so it has to be lukewarm temperature, and we have flour. So that's all that goes into the dough: sour cream, butter, flour, and milk. So what I will do, I will start adding the flour, a little bit of milk. Going to be, so this is the key. The key is not to add the egg. So people are asking me, do you add the egg? I don't. So what makes this flour really nice is the fact that you have sour cream, butter, and milk. So you can tell that this is not enough flour to be able to make a really nice dough. So like I said earlier in my video, you'll have to add double the amount. So we have this pitcher that has 2 cups in it. So I'm just gonna add, I've added 2 cups already, so I'm gonna add another 2 cups of flour. Okay, so just bear with me. Trying to multitask here. So why peerozhkee are different from pierogi? Well, I guess it's the cultural difference. Just after living here for so many years, I'm well aware of pierogi, which is basically the Polish delicacy that has been brought to this country by the Polish immigrants. But there's also the Russian version of pierogi, which is pronounced a little bit differently, peerozhkee. And I'm going to add all of this flour. So basically I'm adding about, let me just make sure that I have a really nice dough. So you have those pieces of butter that you're kind of crushing in with your hands, with these kind of movements. Swoop and press, and swoop and press, and collect it from the sides and press it inside. You'll need some muscle power, which is a great workout to get this going. And it's about 4 cups of flour. So it's still sticky, as you can tell, and you have these pieces of butter that will need to be crushed in. And don't worry if some pieces of butter are falling out. That's okay, you can bring them back in. So I still have sticky flour, right? Sticky dough. I'm gonna add some more. Just like that. And start, you can see that it's already forming up into a really nice dough that you can later put aside to rest for about 20 minutes. And that 20 minutes you will be actually using to make up the filling, to actually cook up the meat and the onions. So you have this dough, and bear with me, this is my first video. I've never done this before. So trying to make really nice dough, and that's exactly how you're making it. Okay, so I have a nice dough. It's a little sticky, that's fine. So the next step, this is what it looks like. It has sour cream, milk, and about 2 sticks of butter. I don't like to leave stuff behind because, you know, food is precious, especially these days. Put it down, and what you do, you let it to rest, right? That's it. Cut. Okay, just hands. So what we're doing here, cutting up the onions. You really don't have to try to go too skinny. Okay, so we're cutting up. So we're adding onions here. I have kids around me that are making all sorts of noise, and the family members, so they will go into history now. So I have the onions. I've already heated up the pan. That's why you can hear the simmering sound on the video. Ooh, and my eyes are getting a little bit teary. There's a lot of onions, but there should be a lot of onions. It has to be one large onion, preferably to be a yellow onion. You don't want the sweet flavor. You don't want the red onion either. So you need that good old yellow onion. Has to be a lot of it. Has to be a good big chunk, good big size yellow, one large yellow onion. And I don't need to fry them too crispy, so that they just get a little bit translucent but soft. So you need them to get a little soft. Okay, just like that. And cut. Is the music in the background? Yeah. I have defrosted this beef. This is the first pound that I'm adding to the translucent onions. So the onions were cooked up for probably about 2 to 3 minutes on a medium, on a medium heat. So this size is a little bit hard, but that's okay, it'll get cooked. I'm just trying to pull it apart because it was frozen, but that's okay, it'll all get cooked through. So I am adding the second pound that I have just defrosted, so 2 pounds of beef. This is a really nice Costco beef. It's organic, and I like organic. Who doesn't, right? So the sides got defrosted. I believe this is the 80%. I mean, what you can use any. The beauty of this recipe, you can use any meat pretty much. You can use whatever meat that suits your fancy, and just try different flavors. You can even cut up steak if you don't have ground beef. If you have the luxury of cutting up the steak into a pierogi, go for it. You can use the chicken, or I've never used turkey. I've used chicken though. Chicken and beef are two of my favorites for this meat pierogi. So we're gonna add that. I'm gonna mix it up in a sec here and cut. So depending on how much salt you want to add, depending on your health conditions or taste preferences, use your judgment on how much of salt you want to add. So I have some French salt here that I really like. It has this, it has this coarse texture. So I'm adding a little bit less than a full tablespoon, because for 2 pounds of beef, that will be enough. And then what I'm doing is I'm actually adding pepper to taste. Again, use your judgment. You can add as much pepper as you want. I actually like them a little bit spicy. So there you go. Okay. So what you need to do now, I think at this time, you can basically mix it up and down, and smush it, and basically make sure that you cook it until all the red is gone and all the pink is gone. So you cook it until all of the pink is gone. It's nice and really looks nice. After this, we will be putting it into a food processor and making them, grinding the meat and onions into a paste-like texture, but was some people like the meat chunks in there, so if you want you can leave those meat chunks, but mostly we'll have to mix it up into a one smooth texture in the processor. And cut. At about medium on where you are located geographically. So because I am in Denver, Colorado, my altitude above the sea level is pretty high, so I have to go probably a little longer. I've been going so far for a good 7 minutes, but I still see pink, so that's a big no bueno, right? So we have to keep cooking it until all the pink is gone. And it's simmering, it's not frying, it's simmering. It's not being overcooked, it's slowly getting there. You can use the skillet to cook it, but there is a reason why I prefer this bigger kind of deep frying pan. A pan with the high walls, because it keeps this 2 pounds of beef, 1 cup of oil, and 1 big onion without really going overboard. It's just enough. So I'm almost getting there. Once the pink is gone, I will take it to the food processor and cut. So use your spatula, because the meat is pretty hot. Clean this up. Okay, so you do it until you get all of your meat grinded in the food processor. What do you call it? Regime. So I am scooping up the juice. So don't be afraid of that nice hearty juice that the meat has released, because that's what makes your pierogi really nice and juicy. I have used this food processor for so long, so this is pretty old. So we need a new one. It still works. It works and it does what it's supposed to do. On. Just a couple of I would say 2 to 3 seconds. I still want my chunks. Some people don't, some people do. So why am I doing this recipe? The main reason why is because a lot of people are asking, can you give me the recipe of your pierogi that you're making? And I'm like, it's hard for me to explain because there's the process of making the dough, which is super important. And people have like, you know, the KitchenAid dough mixers. I like it to do old-fashioned style with my hands. And this is exactly why I'm making this video, a test video, if you will, for all of my friends to see how to make Russian pierogi. Cut. This dough has rested. Looks good. It's a little sticky, maybe a little bit. But so what I'm gonna do is this sticky dough, I'm gonna divide it up maybe in 3 different pieces, the way I like to do it. 3 is the magical number. Okay. It's nice and soft, and the texture is just, and it smells amazing. So I'm putting the pieces that I don't work with immediately under the dish, the shallow, I guess it's a deep dish. So there's another piece. Then I have this last piece that I'm gonna cut up and make a, I'm gonna make a kielbasa out of it. This kielbasa shape, if you will, not the actual kielbasa. So, and from these shapes, I'm making, I don't know, what's the size of this? I'm making about, what's the diameter? What would you tell Isabella? What's this?
Palm. Size of your palm.
Yep, there you go, size of my palm. So I'm making this little pieces of dough that I'm trying to make into a circle. So if you like dough, it's pretty nice to work with this type of dough. So there we go. So I keep making, so I made this kielbasa, right, shape, and then I started cutting using a little bit of flour so that it doesn't stick to your hands. So let's just put this kielbasa aside. I have 3 pieces. Take 1 piece, each piece, dip it into a dough, and using the rolling pin, oops, make a thinner, flatter, just roll it into a flatter shape. Doesn't have to be too flat because you don't want it to break, and it doesn't have to have a lot of flour stick to it because it won't stick. So I'm putting it aside. The next one, rolling it up. Doesn't have to be perfect. As long as it's somewhat round, you don't have to make it super perfect. That's the beauty of it. But kind of try to make the concise size. Again, not too thin. Thin enough, but not too thin to break. Okay? So again, roll it up. There we go. So the next thing, I will show you how to actually put meat inside and shape it into a pierogi. And cut. So I really don't know what happened with the old recording video voiceover. So I'm doing my voiceover while I'm editing this video. So what you can see here is I'm putting a lot of 2-3 spoons per pierogi in each dough that I have made a thin patch of dough and put a 2 to 3 spoons of filling in that previous filling of meat and onion mixture. So trying to basically shape it into a really nice shape. So the seal that you're seeing has to be pretty neatly and tightly stuck together, if you will. Don't be afraid to use your hands and fingers to make it stick. So that's the one thing. And then what you can see from this video is that I'm actually layering that pierogi down with the seam side down. And I'm doing the second thing with that second pierogi. What's really good about these peerozhkees, and people call them peerozhkee in Russia, in the former Soviet Union area. I made this video about a year ago without any kind of, before the madness and craziness started in that side of the world with Russia invading Ukraine and all that crazy stuff. So I make this pierogi because they're just wholesome. They're amazing, and that's something I grew up eating. And there's a lot of food items that I grew up eating in Kazakhstan. I'm a Kazakh by nationality. I grew up in Kazakhstan. I was born in Kazakhstan, but because we were under Soviet Union, we grew up eating the rogies. That's the terminology that I've heard from someone being from the Ukrainian background in growing up in America. So I'm a Kazakh, and there are lots of variations of pierogis in Kazakh, Russian, Ukrainian, Armenian, Turkish. Well, Turks weren't under Russia. Azerbaijani and Uzbek cultures, and everybody calls them their own version, right? So it's the morsel. It's the morsel made out of dough and whatever goes inside. So here in this video, I'm mixing up a couple of eggs and washing the pierogi with that mixture. Why am I doing this? Because it creates that nice glaze over. Once your peerozhkees are done, they're not just dry; they're like kind of shiny and amazingly looking. I don't know exactly what I'm showing on those fingers, but I think what I did is just like I'm trying to work through 3 pieces of dough. And in here, I baked them for about 20 minutes at 425, 430 Fahrenheit. About for 20 minutes, I baked these pierogis. And you would use your your timing. My timing was in Denver, Colorado, and it takes longer to get things baked because that's the elevation that messes up with all of the baking recipes. So we have to figure out what the elevation is and use our smarts to use our brains and smarts to make sure that the pierogi is anything that you're baked at that elevation. So I showed that I have used up all my meat and I have one little piece of dough left, and I was gonna put it in the fridge for the next time that I would bake, and it would stay in the fridge for 2 days. Nothing is gonna happen. So next I'm gonna show that I think I'm gonna make leftover dough is gonna go into another set of pierogi with the cottage cheese. So there we go. Woohoo! The cottage cheese you can mix up with 1 egg, a little bit of vanilla, a tiny bit of sugar if you want. If you don't want sugar, don't put sugar in there. And you can put that into a pierogi and bake it that way. And you can use cottage cheese or you can use ricotta cheese purchased in the American stores. So that being said, basically I showed that I yielded about 2 to 3 trays of pierogi with meat. Really good dinner, really good savory lunch. You can pack it in kids' lunch boxes. I would normally serve it with a nice clear broth of chicken or chicken broth or vegetable broth, and kind of nice to have on a cold winter day or cold fall day, a bowl of broth or soup paired with your pierogi, or you can have a cottage cheese pierogi for breakfast. So that's another possibility. Yeah, I mean, you can buy the cottage cheese that I'm showing here or ricotta cheese. Another thing to add about pierogi, can't find it in the stores, won't be able to find it anywhere in my area. People make empanadas. I think there's a store called Paris Empanada that comes pretty close to these pierogies, but sometimes it becomes a little bit pricey. So I prefer to make my own, and I make this concoction. There we go. Tastes amazing. I mean, when it's hot and out of the oven, fresh out of the oven, you see that really thin dough, that there isn't much flour, but there's a lot more filling in these pierogies. Yeah, really economical to make on your own. If you have 2-3 people present in the family, you can make a lot more. It's a great family activity. I do it because it basically money-saving thing. I cook a lot of my food myself. I don't buy a readily made food. So there you go. Enjoy these pierogies, and I hope you enjoy the video.